So do you think Jaguar can actually be as good as a BMW? Let's find out now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with exoticcarplayplace. So why are we comparing the two car brands today, BMW and Jaguar? Well, because they're both synonymous with performance and luxury, of course. BMW naturally is a little more performance-oriented, a little edgier, while Jaguar tends to be a lot more focused on the luxury side of things. Now, of course, they're both trying to cater to a broader market, so of course they're doing things that are trying to bring people into their marketplace. So there's another key difference to these two brands. One of them is Jaguar is owned by Tata Motors in conjunction with Land Rover as well. And they were sold back in 2008 by Ford, who failed to make a run of it. They couldn't manage it properly, and so it wasn't worth Jaguar falling apart. So Ford essentially let it go to Tata, which is obviously representing this fine British car brand. And BMW is essentially owned by the Daimler Auto Group. And of course, that is German. No secret there. So today we're talking about the Germans and the British cars and how they are similar and how they are both opposites in a lot of ways. So we're going to run through the facets of both car brands in generalities, and I'm going to speak to some specifics, specifically 5 Series versus the XF, as well the F-Type R, which of course I reviewed some time back, and I really enjoyed the drive in it. I think that's a spectacularly good car. So we're going to touch on all of that, and we're going to share with you some of the goods and bads of each facet. So first, let's talk about the exterior, the styling, the way it's constructed on both of these cars. Why don't we start with BMW? BMW's exteriors are full of accents and hard lines and aggression. So BMW is full of carbon fiber, vents, accents, large wheels, and is also very muscular in general. And when we talk about that, you might as well reference the 550 and the M5 BMWs. They really do focus on the muscular looks, and they have a lot more focus on vents, sharp body lines. They really try to make the car look aggressive, even including that big wide open front spoiler. The crappy part, unfortunately, with the BMWs is that because they've been so successful as a car brand, great at marketing the product, and because the product in general is very appealing, the cars have sold in mass abundance, and as a result, there's a lot of 5 Series cars on the road. And because of that, they're becoming a little ho-hum, and there's just too many of them around. Now that's unfortunate because they are a great car, but they're becoming a little bit too mainstream. Now let's talk about the Jaguar. Specifically, how about the F-Type R? That car reeks in class. The Jaguars are just passionate, flowing, beautiful lines. And it's just amazing. The look of the car overall is spectacularly sexy. It has those massive rear haunches that harkens back to the 930 Porsche back in the 70s, which really gave it that pop, that flair that you couldn't mistake from down the road. It really made it stand out spectacularly nicely. It's got the rear end almost like a Kardashian. A little bit exaggerated. Now as well, the rest of the body lines are a lot more sweeping and swooping. There's less hard lines like you'd find in the BMW, where they utilize a lot more chiseled angles. The Jag, the F-Type R, as well as the other XF cars are a lot more rounded off. They have smoother flowing lines, but the XF is an extremely attractive car, as is the F-Type R. Very, very attractive cars, very upscale. The kind of car that you actually, when you're walking away from, you have to take that look. You want to take a look back at it a couple of times before you leave the car. Now let's move on to the interior of both of these cars. The BMW on one hand is chock full of technology. I mean, we talk about things like gesture control, mood lighting, a generally nice quality material finishing. Unfortunately, a poorly placed iDrive screen and relatively stark interiors, particularly when you get the car outfitted in black interiors. It looks very stark, and of course it's becoming a little drab in the sense that, you know, the linear dashboard layouts. Some of the technology is brightening things up, but they needed to do that with the mood lighting because things were getting a little bit just too stark. Now the Jaguar, on the other hand, the XF is one thing. The F-Type R has a whole next level finishing feel to it. The Jaguar's interiors are superior to every other car. It really does feel luxurious, but it has a much stealthier interface in the middle of the dash versus what BMW does on the top, planted on the top of the dashboard. The materials are a little bit crisper in the Jag, and it overall has a much more upscale feel. Generally, as you look around, it feels more upscale than a BMW. It's more in line with the Aston Martin, which is essentially its bigger brother. So a couple things that you might consider downsides in the Jag is that the overall, even though it's a high quality interior finishing, it is a little simpler, largely because there's less tech going on there, or appearance of less tech. It just has a simpler feel overall. There's less gadgets, there's less little accents and detail, but the parts that are in there do feel higher quality. As well, there's another downside with some of the Jags, and I know in the F-Type R has a lacking of gauges. I know that's an ownership quibble that a lot of people are complaining about, owners, that you don't have a lot of the engine health systems like oil temp. Performance cars should come equipped with that. And the Jaguar does not come equipped with a lot of that tech and a lot of the gauges for engine health, which is a bit of a disappointment. But that's just the way it is, I guess. Now, one thing from the interior that I noticed is both cars, whether you're talking about an XF or whether you're talking about the F-Type R, is they're very, very quiet in the cabin, very luxurious, almost whisper quiet. And it does a great job of absorbing a lot of the road noise and the tire noise, largely because of the aluminum construction. It does a great job of sort of keeping the sounds reverberating outwards, and you don't hear that noise inside the cabin like you get in a lot of the BMWs, and even the M cars in particular get a lot more noise inside the cabin. The other thing I noticed from the inside is, from the seat of your pants, when you're driving the car, you could feel the weight transfer at times. If you're on and off the throttle in the F-Type, like I was, in a corner, you can actually feel the weight transfer front to back as you're accelerating, decelerating, or braking in a corner, which sometimes kind of feels like it's throwing you off. Some of it is largely because it has a lot of power and it wants to sort of break loose, but there's a weight transfer going on there.
Ho!
The other thing that I had to note, of course, is based on engine sound in general. Everybody knows now, no secret, BMW is pumping sound, engine sound, into the stereo system, essentially simulating engine noise. Now, they do actually make engine noise, and you've probably seen videos of mine with the M5 does snap and crackle a little bit out of the exhaust, so it does produce some engine sounds of its own. But the cabin is so insulated, and still because it's turbocharged, it's still a little bit light on exhaust noise. That's where the Jaguar absolutely trumps BMW, because turbochargers in the BMWs, turbochargers are mounted in the exhaust. That's what gets the wheels spinning. And because of that, it essentially does its own muffling. And so the sound is reduced dramatically off the exhaust with a turbocharged car. The Jags, on the other hand, are typically supercharged. Now, whether we're talking about the XF or we're talking about the F-Type R, they're supercharged. One being a supercharged V6 and the F-Type R being a supercharged V8 of 5-liter displacement. They both make spectacularly good noises. Have you heard that F-Type R? It's insane. That's one of the sexiest sounds anywhere, anytime, of any manufacturer today. It is just the best sounding car. Now, they do other things to sort of simulate and create those extra snap, crackle, pops, but it's still exhaust sound nonetheless. And the Jaguar has some of the best sounds in the business. And so then we move on to performance. Let's talk about that. There's no question the BMW, the 550 or the M5 are superior in virtually every aspect of performance. They're faster, they're quicker, they're even slightly more agile than the Jaguar. They do a better job of performing. That's what they do. And that's why ultimately they call it the ultimate driving machine, because that's sort of the thing that they have to live up to. The BMW cars are ridiculously powerful, so they focus on that. It is the driving experience, the driving dynamics, and that's where BMW trumps.
Very, very quick.
But again, as I mentioned previous, with the interior sounds or the interior of the car, with the performance, it is so good on paper and it's so fast. But unfortunately, as a performance, in my mind, a lot of people consider exhaust sounds, the overall experience of the car, it's lacking in the BMW. And again, the Jaguar wins there hands down on the exhaust sounds. The Jags aren't as fast, but they sound way better. Now, all the cars, whether we talk about the F-Type R Jag or the XF, or if we talk about the new M5, how about the 550 Beamer as well? They all come with an 8-speed automatic of different varieties, but they all come equipped 8-speed, and they're both shiftable. So they're both sort of performance-oriented, but nonetheless, they're a wet torque converter transmission, all of them. The days of manual transmissions, the days of even DCT seem to be fading quickly with some of these car brands. It's a little bit disappointing in a lot of ways. Not as much for the luxury cars, but certainly for an M5 or an F-Type R Jaguar, you would hope that you can get at least a dual clutch transmission or a manual gearbox, neither of which are available. But here's some numbers for you. The Jag XF comes with a 380 horsepower supercharged V6, which produces 0 to 60 times in about 5 seconds, quarter mile, 13.3. And it is just a really, really quick car that snaps and pops on overrun. Beautiful car all the way around. The Beamers, on the other hand, whether you're talking about the M5 or you're talking about the 550, 0 to 60 times are 4 seconds or less. Very, very fast, no question about it. And you've got either 455 horse or 600 horsepower, depending if you pick the 550 or the M5. So there's no question in my mind, BMW totally wins the performance game. So let's summarize all of this. At the end of the day, if you want the car that has absolutely drop-dead good looks, amazing snap and overrun exhaust sounds, aluminum bodies that reduce sounds, high quality interior that matches Aston Martin, and a general high quality upscale feel that makes you want to take that second and third look back when you're walking away from the car, you're going to pick the Jaguar. Whether you pick an XF for a sedan or whether you go with the more sporty F-Type R, you have a choice for any day of the week. And the Jag is as pretty as an Aston. Now, if you're looking for more tech, chiseled looks, performance, and you want reliability, now, I know, sorry guys, reliability, BMW, I know that's a big discussion here, but either way, if you want the more reliable car, then I would say you go with the BMW. And for me, because BMW does all of that stuff very, very well, for example, the performance. So the Beamer's fast like a Porsche, and the reliability, not to mention the network of dealers, is a little better supported through BMW networks versus the Jaguar networks. I have to say, guys, I would likely go with a BMW for 95% of the models. However, there's one caveat. There's one car, that's the Jaguar F-Type R, that, believe it or not, that is the one car I would probably buy before almost any other BMW. Yes. Sorry guys, the F-Type R, when I drove that thing, I was so impressed. It has the all-wheel drive now in the newer F-Type Rs. It has a really smooth shifting tranny at low speeds, but it feels very lightning fast when you're on the fly. The high quality interior, the sexy good looks, the amazing sound that really, there's nothing like it, guys. There's nothing like the F-Type R unless you get an Aventador or a Lamborghini Gallardo or Huracan with an aftermarket open exhaust. There's nothing better than the F-Type R exhaust system. Nothing out there, guys. So honestly, at the end of the day, I think the F-Type R for me wins. Outside of that, BMW has my dollars for virtually every other car. You know, if I'm not looking for that F-Type R, maybe I don't want something quite that sporty, but maybe I want a sedan or some coupe with back seats, then the F-Type's not going to work for me. Then I would revert back to the BMWs all day. The M5 is spectacularly fast. The M3s, the M4s are amazing as well. M2s, honestly, newfound love there too. So honestly, BMW, spectacularly good, but the F-Type R right here, guys, it has my heart. It is an amazing machine. So thanks everybody for watching the video right to the end, of course. Love that you checked it out. Make sure you don't forget to drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys what your whole thoughts are on this. I also want to thank Winnie George for dropping a line to ask for this video. He was what actually inspired this discussion. Don't forget to share it with your friends, social media, and hit that subscribe button just down below there, as well as the little notification bell right down at the very bottom right there. Lets you know when the next great video is on board. So thanks again, everybody. Mark here checking out with Exotic Car Play Place. Love to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.